Alrighty, we are live. Let's have a look. So, hello to those of you that have just tuned in. We're pretty much live right now. So, very excited for today's conversation on the new moon, or full moon in Sagittarius. So, I am just gonna do some tweaks around on the screen here for me in a second. So, while I'm busy doing that, we're going to have about like 10 minutes worth of dead space where I'm just going to wait for people to kind of jump onto the live. And then from there, we'll jump on to talking about the full moon in Sagittarius, which sometimes I'm going to call the new moon because that's just how my brain works. And then we'll do some Q&A afterwards. All right. How you doing, Kara? Look. Let's check this out. Okay, so first things first, there's only two people here. Let me check the funny brain. Yeah. So I need a sound check. Some people have been talking about the mic being a little bit off for them. It's been weird for me to be able to try and get that understanding because it hasn't been like that. Hold on, I gotta really fix this. That is out of proportion completely. Okay, there we go. That's much better. Whew. All right. Sounds good. It's low for you. All right. The only thing that I'm concerned with is that this little device. Okay, so Mitch says it's good for you. If I turn the mic to go more higher, at some point it's going to hit that I don't know how to describe it actually. I don't know what the terminology is, but it's going to hit a point where it goes above the ceiling, and when it hits that ceiling, it sounds like the voices are scratching. So I've had some huge issues with that. And it sounds medium. Okay. So I'm going to play with something here. Let's see how this works. All right. I'm going to go higher. Okay, let's try this. That's where it's going to hit that sound. Yeah, reverb. Exactly. So that's the thing. Okay, we're going to play with this for a bit to try and see. I'm going to move it down. Tell me if you don't hit any reverb. That was my issue, that it creates that like sound if it's too loud, and then I needed to offset that. So I need to find that sweet spot. So if you guys can tell me while I'm saying hello to Dallas. How you doing, my friend? Irina, good to see you. Okay. So curiosity, I'm gonna now see what this sounds like on. Yes, okay. Start it? Nope. Okay. This is also streaming to the student group in Facebook. So, okay, it's not distorting, it's good. So is there non-distortion all the time? Okay. According to this program, it should be going live. I'm using this other device to make sure that I'm going live. Hello, Celestial. All right. Okay, it's going good. Just setting myself up here, just letting everybody know that's joining, just giving some like 10-minute dead space while everybody else joins along. And then from there, we'll jump into today's full moon. And we're just testing out the sound at the moment, because I definitely do not want to record this thing with this like reverberating sound. I'd prefer to have slightly less sound, but it's coming out clear than having that distortion. So you guys need to be kind of giving me some feedback that tells me that it's good. Distortion free? Yay! That's amazing. What's up, Michaela? All right. So just throwing out some sound testing here at the moment. Got a very cool conversation. I'm really excited for today's conversation. All right. So, hey Terry. You'd prefer it a little bit louder. Perla, how you doing? Good to see you. And I wonder how much delay there is on YouTube in terms of if I say something, how fast does it sound or respond. So I'm going to try something out, yeah? Let's see how far the delay is. So I'm going to wave, and then I'm going to see how long that wave is. Okay, so it's about a second. There's about a second or two delay. So when I do interact with you, I'm probably going to say hello, and then it's live in terms of the interaction, but when it comes into the screen, it's going to be slightly delayed. That's funny. Okay, so new people. We've got 31 at the moment that are watching, and I don't see 31 people in the chat, so I need to let those of you that want to just let me know what the sound's like. That would be great. So Thora, I hope I pronounced that right. Hello Simon, been following your videos for last year, first time live. Excellent, good stuff, sounds good. Marine, this is more important. This is a more important full moon for manifestation. I think so. I think this is definitely a powerful one. You're about to have South Node conjunct your Pluto and Saturn. Alrighty, yeah. You can see how the world is going to be going huge changes. Please speak a bit louder. I am doing my very best. I can try to. I mean, the mic is pretty good there. This whole audio thing is really. I'm hoping it will be a good moon. Let's try that. We are attempting no levels of distortion, so we have to find that sweet spot. Okay. So just for those of you that have just joined, this is just a few minutes of dead space here while we kind of get things rolling, and then from there we'll jump into talking about what I have planned today, and then yeah. So I have allowed the microphone to go up a little bit more, so please let me know how the sound is at the moment. I think I'm going to kind of leave it at that because it seems to be that I've ended a little bit. Nobody has given me any distortion response yet. But as it sounds, it's too good. And yeah, I mean, I tested on my phone. I do a few sound checks before I release a video. It's freaking me out, the South Node conjuncting my Pluto square transiting Pluto. I mean, that's what I'm currently going through right now. Pluto is, this transiting South Node has crossed my Saturn. It's now in my sun sign, and I'm also going through a Pluto square. So when freaking out, what exactly do you mean when you say freaking out? Alrighty. That's good. Thanks very much, Nikela. I mean, anticipation, overwhelming. Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't think that the emotions that have been arising during this period of time haven't been intense by nature. But I'm definitely kind of wanting to encourage somewhere where the capacity for agency is present with you while you go through these transits. Because when we're interfacing with transits that are big, like the one that you're going through right now, we can easily feel disempowered in the way that we've conceptualized these transits. In other words, like our sense of emotional relationship to the way that we've read about them or understood them, or other seen other people go through it, and it kind of like it sometimes renders a response to that transit or to these transits with a feeling of like, you know, something bad's going to happen to me, etc. And you really have to want to kind of stay in with allowing your sense of self to embrace the transit, because this is what you were born with. Like, this is the whole entire purpose of this work that I do, is to help us rewire our relationship to these transits and to these experiences as more that the soul is trying to awaken something within you in that way. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, we've got some people that have joined us at the moment. And hey, Abby, good to see you. Thanks for that grounding. Yeah, I mean, it's a constant. I think what's tough about the transits is every day for that period of time, you are wrestling with those experiences. And I think that sometimes can be very tiring for us, especially when our capacity for resilience is not nurtured because we live very affluently in some ways. I finished the exact transit of my Pluto square Pluto last year, and I'm now going through my Neptune square. Still don't grasp its meaning. The reason why, and this is why I do this work over here. The reason why we struggle to grasp the meaning is because you have to know your relationship to the story that your soul has come to live before you can understand the context of the transits. Otherwise, the context of the transits are just experiences that you go through that have no relation to the emotional arc that your soul is actually on, and that's the piece that's missing. So that's the pretext for all the work that I do, is like the relationship to getting clear on that, so that when you go through transits, you actually understand it. I mean, that's what the Metamorphosis program is all about. That's why I've designed specifically this long-term 3-month work. So if you're serious about actually understanding all of these types of things and trying to make sense of it, then reach out to me. Let's have a conversation. Let's see if it's possible for you to do Metamorphosis program now or at a later stage. But that is the pretext for the work that I do. Yes. Any advice or any T-square advice? I mean, T-squares themselves generally are tension between patterns that in your life that have run a senescent course. In other words, there's a part of you that's come and meeting, that's an old part of you and a new part of you is meeting. One of them is the future, one of them is the past, and the T-square is a pressure to create a relationship between, to bridge you from the old to the new. So when you go through T-square transits, you want to ask yourself, what is the emergent reality that that is like around me right now? How is that calling me to go into that space, feeling scared because that new space is undeveloped, and the recognition that the part of me that is feeling outdated, or like I don't no longer want to do this anymore. That part of it is, you need to let that go. So when you're working with T-squares in your chart, you've got to look at the 3 planets, and then you've got to form a connection with yourself that says, A, what is something that I no longer want to go back to or causing me stress? What is the stress forcing me to look for? Sometimes it can look for solutions. We need to look for solutions. And that solution process is what the T-square is trying to do. It's trying to push you to a new psychological and emotional pattern within yourself. So you have to notice those 2. And sometimes the second piece, aka what you're moving towards, is not available. You just have to kind of like allow that stress to prop you into searching for something that resolves the issue that you have behind you. So I know I don't know how that lands with you, but ultimately there's two states, or 3 states. One is the past and stress, that's 2. And then what is that prompting you to move towards something there? Yeah, it's possible. I do agree with you. A highly sensitive soul can feel white orbs. Absolutely. All right, we have got some people that have joined us. We've got 51. The sound is good. So one last thumbs up for me for the sound is good. Once that is done, I'm just checking out where also I've got some other posts. Let's see how this is landing in YouTube, as well as for student group, astrology student group. Where are you? Okay, that's that. All right. Cool. Okay, good, excellent. Let's rock and roll with this process. Okay, so this is a video. It's going to turn it there. This is a video that is intended to help us connect with this full moon in Sagittarius. Okay, so what I want to do in this video today with you is help you connect with the transits that we're currently dealing with right now. So this full moon, I want to help you connect to it. Then I want to help you understand the mechanics behind this full moon, so that when you've connected to it and you've got these mechanics, you can then activate what I would call agency and an awakening experience. In other words, your ability to be able to then interface, interact with, right, be a part of, embody the evolutionary potential that is present or salient right now. Okay, so that's what I want to do today. We're going to look at the astrology chart, we're going to look at the patterns, then I'm going to kind of explain the mechanics behind them, and then I want to step into how can you be able to take what I've shared and be in union with these transits so that you can see this evolutionary intention that is moving through us right now. Okay, I want to show you how to do that. So that's what I want to do in this video today. Okay, so I'm going to start off with this over here. Okay, very excited for this conversation. Okay, so this is the question, or it's not even a question, this is the trajectory that I want to walk with you today. This to me is the full moon in Sagittarius, and also the relationship back to the new moon in Taurus. Okay, so of course, as you know, new and full moons work in a cycle. We are now at the full moon phase, and this all initiated itself with the new moon. Okay, so this here, this kind of path, this trajectory, this word, these arrowings, this is what I'm going to use as a model to help us understand the depth of this full moon in Sagittarius, and it's called meta-optimization through relevance realization. Okay, some of you, if you may be aware of this person by the name of John Vervaeke, he has spent a great deal of his time, and this is words that he's used. Relevance realization is his words, and this is the process that explains Gemini, Sagittarius, all of the themes that are in the chart today. So this is the guiding principle that I'm going to use to help us connect with this full moon in Sagittarius. Meta-optimization through relevance realization. Okay. All right. So I think, where do I go with this? Do I go with the chart, or do I explain some stuff first? Okay, let's go with the chart. So we're going to get up the chart right now for us. Okay, let's see if it works. Okay, there's the chart. Okie dokie. Okay, so remember, meta-optimization through relevance realization. That is the key framing that is going to be used for this chart, and I'm going to help us kind of digest this and show what this is about. Okay, so first thing that I want to address in this chart over here is, of course, the full moon. So there's that 13 degrees Sagittarius moon in relation to the sun sign that is in 13 degrees of Gemini. Okay, this axis, for those of you that are kind of new to astrology or diving into the way that I work, right, this axis, Gemini Sag, is another way of saying Gemini Sag is how you pay attention to things that are in your environment, objects. Okay, how your eyes and your brain and your ears and all of your senses. So the senses piece is Taurus. The Gemini piece is how you label the things that are in your environment, and also how you are consistently paying attention to the objects and the patterns that are in your world. Okay, so the sensory perception is this Taurus perspective, right? So you feel with your senses, you can see, etc. But once you have been exposed to things around you, right, they need to be processed. They need to come into a kind of state of organization. And that's how we then form perception in reality. So forming perception, perception being the word associated with Sagittarius, forming perception is the process of Gemini interfacing with Virgo and then Virgo coming into Sag, so that then you form perception. So how can you come back to this place and understand what I'm talking about? So if you want, pause the video now, unless you're on the live stream, and I want you to just kind of take a note, just take a look around you. And notice how the moment that you start to look around you, you'll see, if you're paying attention to your brain, right, objects that have association in your life. So whatever objects you have within your life right now, just scan your environment, just pay attention. You'll notice that not everything is the same. They're unique. There are different objects within your environment that have different categories and your relationship to what they are towards you, as well as what they are and how they function within your life. Okay, this is a very important piece. Okay, in order to break down and answer the question, what is meta optimization through relevance realization, this piece you've got to play with me here. Okay, so I want you to kind of really pay attention to what objects are around you, and just notice, like for a second, what value do they hold within your life, and why are they there? Okay, that's an important question. Why are they there? And I don't mean as in why they're there because I put them there. I mean, think deeper. I mean, as in, why are they there? Like, if there's car keys over there, right? Why is the car in your life? Reflect on that process. Now, the simplicity here is, well, I just use it to drive. Yeah, okay, fine, but go deeper. Like, what does it reflect to you? What does it render to you? And when you just start dropping into and connecting with the sort of meta story that surrounds objects that you perceive in your reality, okay? So you're kind of becoming abstract when you're dropping into the object that's there by seeing its connection in your life to not just some keys that are there, but to what they represent, how they play out within your life, what is the function of the role? What do they do for you? So a car, for instance, might give you freedom. That freedom allows you to X, Y, Z, right? The car represents travel, so get you from A to B. So if you look around you, you can actually start to see that each object around you has a meta story to it, a meta experience, right? That's beyond its physical shape that's in your life. Okay, so now that you have this connection, this kind of perception of how you're seeing objects within your life, that the platonic perspective, meaning just the object itself, is there, but now you've dropped into perception, as in depth perception. You've allowed yourself to see the object in more of its function and uses in a non-linear sort of abstract way. Okay, very important to have that. So that is the Gemini Sagittarius axis. That's how it plays out archetypically. So whenever you're studying or observing these planetary systems, and they are in Sagittarius Gemini, you're on the surface, we're like, okay, it's all travel and it's optimized. Yeah, that's true. But what it actually is, when we study reality itself, this is the mechanism behind our capacity to develop perception. Okay, and the Sagittarius piece is peripheral perception. So it's not just sort of what's in front of you and what's salient and what you can pay attention to, but what is expansive and on the peripheral, right? You may be feeling stressed or have this anxiety or stress within your life, but immediately in front of you, there doesn't seem to be anything that's like that. But if you drop into depth perception, as in become more peripheral, you may notice that, say, the car that you have needs to be fixed, and that's giving stress, and it's laying dormant in the background there, but the moment that you bring your attention to it, it comes into the forefront and that stress is present. Yeah? So that's what I'm referring to here. The Sagittarius Gemini is the ability to have our perception go from something that's single and right in front of you to dropping into depth. Yeah? Okay. So that's kind of a way of really connecting with transits. If you want to understand transits within your life, that is how these things work. Okay. So Gemini Sagittarius axis, right? There's this full moon, Gemini, and it's present within ourselves right now. So if you then move over to this Jupiter aspect here, let's look at the Jupiter aspect. So to me, this is important. Jupiter in connection with Pluto. Okay, there's that square that's taking place. Notice Pluto retrograde, notice Pluto in Aquarius, notice this North Node conjunction, and you can see here that these two have just crossed each other in Taurus, okay? Now, pause. Just last week or the week before, I did a video on talking about what this symbolizes and what this symbolizes. If you haven't watched that, go check that out over there, because I talk a lot about the kind of way that this pattern is playing out. All right? So this pattern is very important at the moment. This very, very, very important pattern. Okay, you can even see here that recently we've had Mars that has been connecting to it. It still is. And now you've got Venus that's here, and it's also connecting to it. Okay, even though it doesn't show it on this program, there's a natural square between Venus and the nodes, and Venus in opposition to Pluto. Okay, that's a big deal. So Venus in opposition to Pluto, Mars there alongside this, you know, connecting to Pluto as well. This is going to be a big part of meta optimization. Oh my God, meta optimization through the relevance realization. Okay, this pattern you have here. So this is the pattern that I want you to sort of like hold in your mind when we're trying to resolve something regarding the chart. So that's important. Okay, there's a few other things that are taking place, like for instance, Saturn in Pisces in relation to Leo, like Mars and Leo there. That in conjunct, very, very important in the context of how I'm going to show this with you. Okay, this is the piece that is relevant realization. That in conjunct is what's causing there need to be that is causing that. This is the meta optimization piece. Okay. All right. So Sagittarius, Gemini, Pluto squaring Jupiter. We've got all of this stuff over here as well, squaring the nodes. And as I said before in one of the other videos, there's a polarity that's existing, right? There's one part of us that feels that sense of stuckness and limitation and wanting to desperately get out of that space. And then there's another place that feels like it's on the horizon, and it's like you're leaning towards it, like you're leaning towards the possibility of a new way of relating to yourself. These two patterns are present with us. That's the squares to the nodes. All right, so I wrote some notes down over here that I wanted to use. Okay. So this is the astrology chart at the moment, okay? So there it is. You can see it with your left brain. Gemini, you can see the pattern. There's a full moon. There is a Mars in conjunct the Saturn, which is important. The Venus is in opposition to Pluto. The Mars is also squaring the nodes. The Venus is also squaring the nodes. You can see there. And again, you also see this Mars-Venus that is squaring this here, okay? So very, very important, these patterns. This, 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 and this, okay? And then, of course, just that pattern there. All right. So if we come back to this, and we say meta optimization through relevance realization. Okay. All right. So I'm going to attempt to, through this process, walk us through the emotional journey that comes along with this pattern. Okay. So firstly, loss of self. Okay. Loss of self. And in the astrology chart, where you see this is Mars there in opposition to Pluto. That's just recently happened. This Venus in Cancer in opposition to Pluto. Okay. So these two patterns, like Mars initiated something and Venus is going to come along and say, okay, now it's time to make changes relative to this, what has been initiated. Okay. What has been initiated is this feeling of wanting to go beyond. And Venus is coming along and it's saying to you, okay, kiddo, if you want to come along, if you want to move to that next step, what values, what emotional attachments do you have? What identities, past set connections to that past are you carrying with you that need to be processed through so that you can then take action and continue to go moving forward? So it's like, if you want to move forward with something, this T-square is saying this. It's saying, if you want to move forward, you're only allowed to carry 3 bricks with you, okay? Because there is a sort of like brick limit as to how many bricks you can carry with you into this new future. And you're sitting with like 12. And you're like, huh, what do I need to get rid of? Okay? So the meta optimization is the capacity to decide what of those bricks that you don't want to carry with you. Okay? So that when you move through the portal of transition into this new space that you want to live within, and you bring the 3 bricks with you, what you have left behind is a process of understanding what's relevant and what's not. So relevant realization. Okay? And this is the chart that's helping us do this. So yeah, do you see that there? Okay, that's the Venus opposed Pluto. That's the relevant realization. And then again, the meta optimization is through this. Okay, value structure. So let's start off with this slide here. Again, loss of self. What do I mean by this? Okay, well, this is what I mean. So up until now, okay, we have been living in a world that has, for us internally, been a place that we could say, oh, this feels familiar, okay? And within the context of this world that we've been living within, this familiarity, this sense of connection, has created a feedback within our body to say, okay, everything's cool, I'm doing this over here, this is how I've always seen myself. And so we're kind of moving along, and in this sense of like, what habits do you have? What rituals do you have? What behaviorisms do you have in this world, okay, that consistently keeps on saying, this is who I am, this is my life, this is my sort of way of doing things, etc. Okay, so it's like you come back to a place of safety within yourself, a sanctuary within yourself, and within that place, there is a feeling of attachment, there's a feeling of connection, there's a feeling of belonging somewhere, whatever that is. And there are frames, okay, there are frames that allow us to hold the perspective of our lives, okay? So imagine here that if we go back to what I was talking about with meta-cognition, saying there's an object in your life, and that object, if we sink deeper into the meta-dynamics around it, we can see it's not just an object, it's actually something a lot bigger within it takes up space in our life, it is part of our identity, okay? So I want you to do the same here. I want you to think about your life as its totality, that there's a whole range of patterns and frames that give you or reflect to you a sense of identity as well as a sense of self. And for the most part, this has just been, yeah, how you've been, right? Now, you bring these transits in, and Pluto comes along into Aquarius and says, this feels like a need for revolution. There needs to be something that has to change. And not even so much as so as that it has to change. It's more along the lines of Pluto in Aquarius comes along and says, hey, by the way, all of these patterns and frameworks and perception definitions that you have, the way that you've identified your life and how you've lived, I want to take all of it and I just want to kind of like throw it upside down. And what you feel, and what I feel at a more sort of like conscious salient level is, I'm really starting to get agitated or not feeling connected to these things anymore in life. I'm noticing that that doesn't seem to have the meaning it does anymore. That doesn't seem to bring me the same value or the same experience anymore. And so now what's happening, right, with this kind of disruption that Pluto and squaring the nodes is coming in, is that it's bringing this agitation, right? Well, most of us will feel this agitation, this need for something more, this need for something different, and it brings it to the surface like that. And you're like, I want to align with this process. I feel that there is a possibility for something new that I can do with my life. I don't know what that is yet. This is like going back like 2.5, 3 weeks, right? Even longer. But I would say 2.5 to 3 weeks has really been the moment where a lot of this has become more intensified. It's been more present with us. We can feel it within our lives, right? And so now we're starting to kind of like act on it. This is when Jupiter entered Taurus and aligned with the North Node, right? And that's when that video was created, right? We all feel this possibility that something's on the horizon for us, but it feels there at the moment. But these transits have been poking and prodding at the underlying attachments, this meta connection to your life, and it's been saying this is becoming irrelevant. That's what Aquarius does. It makes things irrelevant by accelerating our perception of it, okay? All right, so you're following me so far, right? So we have this world, we have our sort of customs and identities, we feel safe within it, this is who we are, it gives us a sense of identity, and then all of a sudden these transits come along and goes, and in that metaphysics space, it kind of disrupts everything. And it turns things on around, and it says to you, hey, feeling like there's something new that's on the horizon, but you know, you don't know what it is yet. You're just kind of like responding to something new. Okay, so loss of self. Now, what happens when something disruptive comes along and changes or throws up the experience of continuity and consistency and familiarity and ritual? Every single day I take my dog out for a walk and I do this, and then I come home and I do that, and or I eat my food like this, and then all of a sudden something comes along, disrupts it, and your whole entire processing capacity, your perception of things starts to get disturbed, and it freaks you out. Most people then turn to astrology in that moment because they need to restabilize the frames, right, and not process the metacognition that's actually happening deeper in the surface. That's what I do. That's what this work is about. It's the capacity to look there instead of readjusting the frames here. This will automatically sort itself out. But the loss of self will lead to this. Okay? Feeling displaced, feeling alienated, feeling foreign, in a foreign territory, in something different, right? There is an exile that comes along with this, so that it leads to this experience of feeling displaced. And this is very disorientating for a lot of people. And this kind of world that we're kind of presently moving through right now is rendering a range of these types of emotions: displacement, a feeling of not belonging anymore, a disconnect, a sense of, like I said, an exile, a necessary desire to want to exile from an environment, to move out of, okay? So this is an important slide because for most of us, this place creates stress within ourselves that will lead to, hopefully, the ability to find a new self, right? To explore a new self. But this is where this transit, these squares to the nodes, become activated. Because what renders the experience of loss of self that leads to feeling in a foreign territory, that's the North Node. That's the North Node in Jupiter and Taurus and Mercury. It's a new, complete new environment. But you don't feel in that new environment. I mean, it's not even there yet. It's still on the kind of like the edges of reality. For most people, we're just feeling this new kind of energy moving forward like that. That's the Pluto in Aquarius. But now it's going to retrograde, and so it's going to go back again. This is why this is such an important video, because in order for you to be able to successfully navigate the experience of Pluto retrograding so that it prepares you for Pluto direct, you need to be able to understand this piece here. That's what we're leading into. We're leading into grieving the past identities that once held meaning, purpose, and recognition for us. In other words, what had relevance. Okay, so in this place of loss of self, all of our relevance disappears, all of our sense of connection, our purpose. And we lead into what Vervaeke calls, which he's labeling as a meaning crisis. But in here, for most of us living, it is literally our sense of identity connected with what is relevant that is now becoming outdated, or has become outdated relative to the Pluto square. And now we're sitting in this kind of weird space. We're between what was relevant, but now is not relevant, and so absent, and this place that feels like, okay, I'm moving in that direction, but I'm so foreign to it. I feel displaced within there. I'm in exile. Who am I in that new space? It feels uncertain. It's uncharted territory, right? And for a lot of other people, that reality doesn't even feel as if it's present. It's completely absent, in the sense that there is a foreign place. This is the byproduct of this Pluto square, is that it will accelerate people out of comfort into discomfort, and then in that space they will feel displaced exiled, loss of purpose, connection, loss of meaning, rendering a complete crisis within themselves, right? Because now all of a sudden the depth perception, Sagittarius, Gemini, the meaning that you give your life, that's gone with this. So some of you will go, okay, I see meaning, I can align with that process, I don't know what it is yet. Others will go, I have no meaning. This is kind of the binary that takes place, right? That's what this Pluto square is doing. That's why it's such a huge thing, and it's happening at that meta level, okay? So, displaced, how do we process? Well, we have to go back and recognize that the past patterns of identity were, at the time, who you were, what you were conditioned by what your environment shared with you. But now, as Pluto opens up Pandora's box and says, hey, by the way, everything that has been there has become outdated and there's a new opportunity to move in a new direction. Somebody said to me, okay, they're having the South Node of a Saturn in kind of Libra stuff. And I was like, yeah, you're literally coming through a time where you're going to watch society go through a complete shift in identity and you along with it, right? So displaced is the Pluto opposed Venus. That Venus and that Pluto, oh, sorry, let me just go to here. That Pluto opposed Venus that's sitting here, the Pluto opposed Mars, that for you has rendered an experience, has brought you closer to reality, the change that is needed to be made in your life. So Mars created that push. Now Venus is coming along. And what Venus is saying to you is this. It's saying, in order for you to move forward into this new space, you need to work on your inner capacity for self-recognition, self-reliance, and an internalized sense of you can manage your resources and understand your resources and be attuned to resources in a self-sufficient way. It doesn't mean that you cannot share and co-create. It means if you're going to take that leap into that new direction, bring with you the capacity for trusting your own connection to self, right? Meta optimization is the capacity to recognize what is actually driving you to go, this is what's valuable and this is not, okay? Relevance realization is the ability to recognize within yourself what is actually relevant for you, what is internal within yourself, and then when you fuse the two together, you're now driving your choices consciously, okay? So this is the piece with the Jupiter in a square to Pluto, and also this Jupiter full moon, or the Sagittarius full moon. It is prompting us to look at what drives your depth perception and how that then establishes and defines your perception of what matters. What's important to you in a very simple way. What's important to you? And how do you become connected to that which is important? That's what the Mars in its connection to Saturn's about. The inconjunct that's happening there between Mars and Saturn is both a binary of the loss of self, the fading irrelevancy of your purpose and feeling of destiny and meaning in your life, and simultaneously the opportunity to start observing what is presently real, alive, and exciting for you. So what is relevant within the context of your perception versus what is becoming, what is fading into the depths of your unconscious that is no longer relevant anymore. That pattern will lead you to then be able to resolve the square to the node. And part of that pattern is asking yourself, where do I still have placed external securities, emotional securities that drive me to make choices from a place of fear and more of a kind of like ego salient level versus what's driving me behind at my soul level. So what is exciting you? What is igniting you right now? Okay, that's the piece here, and you want to be able to connect with that deep, more meta state so that it can inform your capacity to perceive reality. Then, by informing that, you can move forward and be in alignment with your truth. In other words, to become aligned with your truth is the ability to drive your sense of perception, not from what's right here in front of you and all of the things that could stress you, but actually what is your deep belief about the way that you perceive reality. Which is why part of the Pluto square is saying, hey, if you want to come into this new space, this new dimension, you have to not bring bricks with you that say, I'm not good enough, I can't do this, I'm too afraid of that. It's like there's no more excuses. If you want to step into that space, you can't bring parts of yourself that are conditioned by belief systems that make you feel inferior or don't trust yourself. You have to take the attitude moving forward with this whole entire schism that says, I may not know how to do it, but I can still learn, I can still inquire, I can still grow, I can still expand, I can still reach out and find where that information exists, assimilate it within yourself, and then move forward with that. That's the Venus opposed Pluto. You can either feel completely at odds with this process and go like, I can't do this, or you can do the Pluto Venus opposition and say you have to examine the underlying core attachments that render you sort of connected to your fear-based process. You have to address them, you have to process through them, and then you have to step into and lead into paying attention to what is actually driving you at a deeper level. So where are your values? What do you really value? And you have to bring more of that into your presence, more of that into your salient experience. So this is kind of like the capacity to manifest what you want within your existence by driving your reality not from the more fear-based sense of identity, but more from the deep intuitive truth that you know is within you. Right? That's the beauty, that's the capacity for this chart. And this chart is asking you to address that, what attachments you have that are keeping you, like I said, in a more sort of shadow state. That's your work, that's our work. And part of the relevance realization is to pay attention to what's relevant and within your excitement versus that which is not. That's what drives a deeper meta-optimization. If you're allowing yourself to be driven by the process of your instinct saying, hey, I really want connection, that's what I value, that's what I drive for, and I'm going to start making choices in alignment with that. But you may sacrifice connection for a perception of something else that you think you need, but that's driven by a shadow perspective or an idea of yourself that's not really who you are. And that's where you need to do this work so that you can become more in alignment with your actual value structure. So if I come back to my slide over here and we move out of this place of being displaced, which is an inability to, or it's a struggle to feel safe in an environment that feels foreign to you, ultimately. And a lot of people will feel foreign in this place. So if we go down here, the attune to the self. Part of the meta-optimization is the capacity to attune to self. So this requires you to be able to, at least within a day, spend 10 to 15 minutes, or maybe like 10 minutes every 6 hours or 4 hours or whatever it is, where you stop, you slow down, Taurus, and you come back to sensations and experiences that you've been having. You process and acknowledge that you actually exist, right? The science behind this process is to bring into focus a presence about yourself and to actually connect with that. So the attunement to the self is a necessary step. That's the Saturn in conjunct Mars in the chart. There must be the ability to connect with relevance. And when you understand what is relevant for you, not within the bigger scope thing, it's just what's real in front of you right now. And you realize that, you can start feeding that step. And that is attuning to the self. So step one was initiated into a loss of self, which is the old frameworks and ideas that we used to live by. Then we stepped into a space of complete like foreignness, well, I'm doing something completely new for the first time. Yeah, we all are in some way, shape or form. And in other people, they don't even know that that's what's happening. They're just feeling displaced. We're in new territory. In that new territory, the answer to the question is spending more time attuning to a deeper self. And you do that by paying attention to the meta states of yourself. And you bring those meta states into the physical. In other words, think of it as like you're like the abstract space around you, and you want to take your attention and pay more attention to your beliefs, pay more attention to the words you use, pay more attention to what's driving the person that's really in what you feel. So even think of it in the sense where you can just take a finger and like put it in front of your nose, just like 30 centimeters in front of your nose, and just pay attention to that single point, and think of it as bringing my beliefs into that single point, into focus, and then through that, reflecting on what those beliefs are telling you and how they're driving your perception. Because you want to optimize that relationship between the deep, abstract, nonlinear space, which we talked about with the car keys, right? It's not just car keys, it's freedom, it's the ability to do this, there's so much more. You want to bring that to the forefront, and you want to become more conscious of that. That's the attunement to the self. Okay? From there, it will start rendering a feedback loop in your life. That feedback loop will ultimately develop a new sense of identity. Over time, you will start to learn to connect with this self over your unconscious self that is just driving the show. So this is about becoming conscious. So you want to be able to now, from this place over here, start having your future self driving the place, future-driven self. So to step into the Jupiter on the North Node in the Taurus piece, okay, you all know from the previous video, each and every one of you, I want you to connect with, I want you to try connect with, what is that new landscape that's in front of you right now? Okay, what's that new landscape that's in front of you right now? You want to optimize the belief structure that drives you to connect with that new landscape, while simultaneously grieving the old self as something that you can't bring into the future, but it got you to the place that you're at right now. As you grieve that process and you let it go and you say, hey, this is who I was, this is no longer who I am, and I recognize that what was driving me was maybe an unconscious desire for blah, 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 but I no longer want to be driven by that perception. I'm working through that perception, and then as I free it, I'm now creating more space for something new to come in that is aligned with the deeper self, right? So you're optimizing your sense of direction through understanding what is relevant, and also at the same time allowing what is not relevant to pass back into the distance. Yeah? Okay, so it's kind of the potential that is held within this new moon chart here. So the last question, or last thing I want to present you is, how do we do that? Okay, well, we need to do it through symbol. Okay, so in this image over here, it's not so much these symbols as much as symbols hold Gemini functions, because we all see yin yang, we all see the lotus flower, we all see the caduceus, right? But we know that the yin yang symbol, right, holds meta story to it. Just for a moment, just pay attention to what comes flooding into your worldview the moment that you see that symbol. Pay attention to that, right? Pay attention to how much information comes right into the forefront of your reality the moment that you see that yin yang symbol. Okay, there's a whole entire meta world that is now present there. Now, let's say you allowed all of that context, all of those things, that piece of information, for one day to drive your decisions. So you may come up with a challenge in the early morning, and you know that, in one perception, the yin yang can represent the relationship between light and dark, shadow and non-shadow, or it can be whole, whatever. Now, take all that meta stuff and now feel into how that information can drive your sense of identity to resolve that problem. That is, in fact, what astrology does, right? In one context, it's a frame that allows us to take that meta stuff and bring it into the forefront so that it helps us make sense of the way that we experience reality. So my question to you now is, as you've connected to that, we're going to do something here, okay? And this is actually, I don't know if many of you know about this yet, but the evolutionary astrology immersion that's coming out super soon, this is kind of where we're going with this, right? I want you to come into a symbol of what that future space feels like, right? So each and every one of you, I'm sure, maybe some of you don't, that's okay, it's fine. But that's why you need to do more of that relevance realization. It's like, what am I paying attention to that is really relevant and real for me right now? And if it's hidden, then I need to start giving more permission for those things to come up so I can start to give more attention to them. The more attention I give to it, the more I can start to drive a sense of identity that's in alignment with what's relevant. So what you want to ask yourself right now, is step into as reflectors. First, what does that future space feel like? Where is it? What does that represent to you? Where is that within your life? Okay. Now, this is obviously not something you can do right now completely, but I encourage you to drop back and feel and perceive what types of symbols you can attune to that will help you embody the agency needed to step into that new space. Okay, so symbols, some form of symbol that can be, in this extent, do you want to be a hero? You want to live the hero arc that allows you to cross into the threshold? Do you want to, what is the model? What is the symbol that represents the future for you? Right? And think about that. Feel into that process. Allow yourself to drop into that. And maybe it takes like a week to come up with that. That's okay. But ultimately, if you really are able to capture that symbol, you want to be able to then drop into relevance realization, which is what is really relevant within the context of your life, and how are you deciding what's relevant within life? What are you prioritizing? What is the priorities that you give in a day that allows your sense of identity to say, yes, I'm in alignment with truth, or I'm not? And you'll start to notice there's a kind of schism between things that go versus things that are like I wish, right? Feel into what I wish sounds like, and then even ask yourself the question, what types of beliefs do I hold around the I wish? You may say, I wish I could have this, but it's, I can't do this. Why? Challenge the why, challenge the belief structure, the metaphysics behind that I wish, to break it down so that you can then attune to a sense of truth that's more in alignment with your ability to feel that reality and to live it, as opposed to the one that is sort of keeping you stuck in old frameworks. Because the idea of stepping into something that's feeling like you're feeling exiled, or you're stepping into a displaced place, can be like, oh, I don't want to do that, so let me just keep my frames together in this way. But that Pluto is not having any of it. This is why it's Pluto square the nodes. It's like, this is the end of the line. Those frames are being collapsed. All I'm doing over here is simply just helping you kind of connect with how to navigate as these frames collapse, a perception that you can use that's a connection to something deeper within yourself that can drive you and your instincts so that you have agency. So like I said, right, you want to cultivate a symbol that represents everything, the belief systems, the perception, the way that you communicate it, the action, what it embodies, the values. That was the Pluto opposed Venus, right? What values do you align with that are relevant for you, that you feel relevant, that excite you, that drive your perception, and you want to kind of let that be a symbol that you are in union with. So this is where I'm going to end this conversation right now, right? Ultimately, the symbol represents a relationship to that which is the future, so you can project imagination into it. That's the Saturn-Neptune piece, right? All in Pisces over there. Can I project onto that a reality, and then from that form a relationship to that, so I can be in communion with that, of the part of me that is in that reality and the part of me that's moving towards it. That's the meta-optimization. It's the capacity to see that space over here and then allow your sense of relevance in the moment to prioritize that story over the one that you've been living in. Yeah? Okay, cool. So that's where I'm going to end that over there. I hope that kind of dropped into something deeper. I know there was a lot of information there. So always come back and watch this video. You can always write in the comment section questions to me that I can help maybe attune to, or maybe you're already doing this. I'm curious. Okay. So let's go back here to this piece and okay. All right, so I'm going to just take a small little break. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly catch up with some of the text. How many of you kind of like were allowed to, can understand what I was talking about? How did this kind of land with you? Okay. Exactly, archetypes. Yes, Saturn in conjunct Mars. The big stones analogy. It's right, because that's how it is, right? If you're gonna, you need to, the simplicity in that is that if you want to step into that new space, aka that new self, how do you develop a very practical organizing principle that develops that new self? And that's what this was about. We are leading towards that new self, but along the road, there are sort of metaphysical governing principles that build that new self. And what I'm saying is prioritize what is relevant within your life. Notice the relevance through the understanding of the beliefs that you have that drive yourself to then prioritize what is relevant. And then you want to examine whether those belief structures, your metacognition, is in alignment with that new self or not. That's what I'm talking about here. And part of that transition period is dealing emotionally with the experience of displacement, which comes from a progressive disassociation from the part of you that no longer feels as if you are who you are, ultimately. No, I don't think it's a tough full moon, honestly. Well, for me, my experience of it, I think it is. It can bring up a lot of emotions. I don't disagree with that process, and I don't want you to feel like I'm denying it. But I really want to encourage a way of tuning into the capacity and depth of this new moon, in a way where you are seeing the evolution of your biology as well as the evolution of your psyche at the same time. Okay. So so when you write, Irene, you wrote there, I was so uncomfortable in the comfort. Like that's the relevance realization. That's the metacognition that's saying, hey, something here is not working, but how do I lose the self and begin to replace it with something that reflects comfort, right? Or reflects the resolution of that comfort, or that discomfort, pardon me. And the relevance realization is the ability to begin understanding and scanning your environment and saying, what habits, what patterns, what belief systems do I have around my meta perspective that drives me to value or prioritize things within my life that are not relevant, or reinforce the comfort even though there is discomfort. Okay. Okay. So just going through. Okay. All right. So you just definitely feel displaced. Reminds me of someone told me around me, because a lot of us do feel that way. A lot of us feel a sense of displacement in an environment where a lot of the frames that we've used to make sense of reality have faded into the distance. That's what Neptune and Saturn are doing. It's making it real that over the last 10 years we're going through a huge transformation collectively and cyclically, and part of that is the identity that we've used and the traditions we use to feel a sense of connection and identity as us, right? Otherwise, it's just dissociation. That's where technology comes in and kind of just ramps up the loss of connected self, because it just keeps feeding that disassociation. And it's not a negative thing completely. I think that there is a part of the world that doesn't make sense that we disconnect from until eventually it starts to make sense or we get activated by it. Okay. I actually chose 4 big stones and reserved my times for them throughout the day. I love that, Fanny. That is amazing. That's exactly what I'm talking about. That is relevance realization in action. Carolyn, landed 100%, moved to Paris yesterday and trying to find myself here. I know it's early into this journey, but I feel the need to find a new self, both in work and daily routines. That is amazing, Caroline. I'm so happy that you kind of gave that example, because that is perfectly what I'm trying to describe here, right? Is a move to a new space. It's foreign. You're not integrated in the context of complete, like, oh, this is just where I am. So you're very alert and you're paying attention to new experiences, and you're very kind of in that new space of processing. And you're forming new perception, new depth perception around how you perceive reality. And this is what this is. That's what's happening here. Right now, there's a tremendous amount of disorientation to what is identity. And part of that is wherever we are. So like in your case, you know, both self and daily routines. Yes, that is correct. That's exactly what I'm saying, Daniel. You sound like to give the tools to be able to how design the lives moving forward, because that's the potential that is present with us right now. Your Virgo moon doesn't like any of it. Virgo is notorious for not wanting the frames to be readjusted, because then the patterns don't add up, and that's why Aquarius and Virgo are not friends, and yet ironically are. Okay. Okay. So, a little bit of questions that we can jam with for a bit, and relevant to what I've been talking about today. So currently is the transits. And this is very much kind of, I don't want to share a lot, but this is kind of like the frameworks per se of this astrology immersion that's coming up super soon. If you're not actually on the wait list for that, I highly encourage you to do that, because we're going to be able to let you know. There's a 6-spot series that I've created to kind of really explain what this whole entire process is going to be about, and I'll share with those videos to you guys on the actual wait list itself. So I will find the link for that, the link to that, and pop it in the chat over there, so you guys can get on that wait list, so you can get some information more about how to learn astrology in this way, because this is where it's at. It's like we're in a different place right now when it comes to astrology. There's so much potential. Okay, questions while I go and search for, let's have a look. Okay. Where is it? There it is. Oops, I completely moved myself over there. Okay, so you can see me on the screen, which is great. Now I need to do this. So all I'm doing is just looking for the link while I wait. Do any of you have some questions for me that's directly linked to this Pluto with this full moon that I can maybe help attune you to? Oh, I know where it is. Okay. So this is the link to the early bird waitlist. This is just for the up and coming immersion that we're busy doing, and give you some information about what it exactly is about, etc. So that's there. And also, like I said, we've done a 6-spot series videos just kind of explaining it. So that's also there. Okay. Is it normal to feel through this? Okay, let's go back to the main screen. That's not there. It's not there. Okay, there we are. So there's a question, right? Maureen says, is it normal to feel as though this has been a really tough time from the displacement? Yeah, absolutely. It's completely normal. That's one of the reasons why I'm doing this, is because I want to acknowledge that the place of displacement that each and every one of you feels in different ways, that's emerging within you and probably will become more and more present if that identity that you have is still linked with what is not relevant within you. So if you've just been kind of living your life on autopilot for a long period of time, this energy will prompt the need to pay attention to where that may not be working for you. And until you kind of become conscious of that driving force, this will just become more and more outdated, more and more irrelevant, more and more sort of displaced. The meaning in life will start to just fade away consistently. And what I'm doing here is helping you recognize that the process of things that are becoming irrelevant, the realization of what is becoming irrelevant, is done to help you shift from the past into the new emerging future that Pluto in Aquarius is bringing. All the Virgo is doing, Perla, is the necessary need to become aware of what's salient within your life. So your Virgo moon is saying, hey, like there's all conditioning around the Virgo moon, like how you internalized your mother and how you internalized your sense of self-worth and how you then see yourself, etc. You got to work on that Virgo thing, which is very, very simple. Go and the story of Virgo, the way that you heal Virgo complexes in your life is you address it through this lens. Wherever you got planets in Virgo, particularly the moon, you want to look at it where the ideal that you have wanted to just be perfect. So where innocence has been within your life, I think that's just beautiful and perfect and you want to preserve it, where it kind of like breaks or something happens to it. And the disillusionment that comes from you not being able to protect it, aka Virgo, let's put little Virgo frames around it and it has to be perfect, it has to be perfect, it has to be perfect, yeah. At some point, life's going to come along and say, sorry, but you just need to accept that not everything is always perfect. In the process of realizing that Virgo is teaching you how to be comfortable with that which is not always perfect, you have to process through your grief. You have to process through stopping it from trying to be consistently perfect all the time, otherwise you're failing. So it's the acceptance at a deep level of your ability to allow things to be what they are versus what they should be. Okay. Right, Fanny, definitely true. Okay. Can you talk about how Pluto opposed Mercury in Leo in the 8th can play? This full moon is very 12th house, 8th house for me. Sure. I mean, I don't have the context of your chart, but what I can say to you is this. If Pluto's opposing Mercury, so do you have natal, okay, so natal Pluto and Aquarius oppose your natal. Okay, so transiting Pluto in a relationship to your natal Mercury. Right. Okay. So I would say that this Pluto energy, this Pluto transit is triggering your Mercury, where you probably carry some wounding around the ability to want to be seen for something that's important for you, but you may have never had the validation that has created an identity that says this is relevant. Leo, the archetype of Leo, the science behind Leo, is our relationship to an internal sense of this is important, but waiting for somebody to mirror that back to you that says, hey, that's important too. Once you have that relationship between an internal sense of self that says this is purposeful and somebody that says, hey, I actually see it as purposeful as well, aka being seen, that's the Leo archetype. And that's why that internal process, if it's nurtured correctly, will come across as, hey, this is who I am, versus the process where it's attempting to experience or extract relevance from other people so that it can reinform to you that you are relevant. And so with Pluto coming into that, it's probably bringing up a lot of memories around where your language or communication structure in some way, shape or form needs the reaffirming sense that yes, you can communicate and that you've got something valuable to say, or that your mind thinks in a way that is valuable, and then address that. If you can do that, if you can allow yourself to sink into just acknowledging that process, but then leading with it or communicating with it, you can heal that piece. I don't know how that lands for you, but I hope that kind of gives you at least a sense of direction or elicits a response within you. Hey, Rodrigo, I'm glad to see that you're hanging out in Brazil over there. All right, Amanda, I feel like I'm finally seeing expansion in physical endeavors. Cool. But then it's like I'm getting hit with all these intense emotions from the past, or emotions that I've been working really hard through to change direction. Okay, so that's a great example of this whole entire process, right? Those emotions can inform your capacity. So this piece here, so it's like 3 layers, right? There's you, or your sense of identity, then there's emotions that drive it behind it, and then there's your metacognition. And what you want to do is try and understand what is the emotions and the metacognition trying to do. So that's where you've got to reflect. What are the emotions telling you that is referring to something deeper in your cognition? and you want to work on that relationship with it. I know you've been doing it, but it probably might just be allowing you to feel those experiences, see that they're not bad, and then move on. I don't know how that lands with you, but that's my intuition. As you clear out that psychic space, it brings more of your conscious self through. So don't abandon those new things. Just allow those emotions to come through and probably give you information about what was the past like for you. You have to be patient with your process, Androni, 100%. Okay, let's see if there's other people that were talking. Okay, 20 years of autopilot, can't ignore it anymore. That's incredibly spot on. Great, I feel that. Okay, Pluto going through Capricorn, going back into Capricorn. I'm not excited about it. I love Pluto in Aquarius so far. Again, I'm going to reframe that. This is a perfect example of what I'm trying to say here, okay? So to me, this is not true for you, but this is how it feels, is that when Pluto goes back into Capricorn, right, that's bad, right? I don't want it to go back into Capricorn. And so this is the salient piece of you that drives that perception, but that may stop you from paying attention to the potential that Pluto in Capricorn is bringing. So now this optimization might not give you or show you or reveal to you the relevance of that transit. So what I want to say is this: allow the retrograde to do what it's naturally there to do, which is to bring things back to you that stops you from fully jumping into the Aquarius energy. Okay, that's what I'm saying. It's like, okay, cool, Pluto will go back into Aquarius, but it will bring things up. It will bring emotions up. It will bring challenges up. And if you can manage that thing, excellent. If you're not, it's going to displace you. Okay. So what was the question you wanted to ask, Terry? About Pluto retrograding back? I'm Neo Rising and I'm an artist. Just reached out for an artist group, hoping to enter in this group to be able to exhibit with them. Do you think it's a good idea for that? Thanks. Okay, so this is a good example, again, of relevance realization relative to meta optimization. My questions to you are this: what are you looking for when reaching out to them? That's the first question I'd propose to you, right? That's the question you reflect back to yourself. So you put your finger in front of yourself like that to create meta salient perception, and you want to ask yourself, what's driving me to want to reach out? So the first initial answer that you're going to give is, well, I want to enter this group and I want to be able to exhibit with them. Okay, cool, fantastic, that's great. But it's not metacognition. When you exhibit with them, what do they do? What does it do? Think about that. Right? Feel that. Is it like you being part of a group allows you to have capacity for people who you like to be aligned with? And you go, yes, I like to be aligned with people who have same interests as me. This might give me the possibility to create some artwork and have it distributed and be seen better, and so on and so forth, right? I want you to bleed into beyond this, the first thing, which was, I want to exhibit with them. What is it really about? Like, and that's where that meta optimization, that's what I'm trying to say, is that you want to become relevant, you want to become realized, Jesus. You want to become realized relative to the relevance of your desire. Does that... Know thyself? So that's the piece, and this applies to all of us, right? That was a great example from us. Like, okay, coming back into what is the meta of that process. Finding passion through your tribe. In another way, like, and the idea here is that we are seeking passion externally, peeps. I am not advocating for this at all. I'm advocating for the relevance realization that meaning and purpose is already within. And that what you're doing is you're switching your perception from, instead of looking at there and going, oh, that must be that, to what is driving me to acknowledge what is relevant, that then I make relevant in my life, that feeds back the experience of realization of my true self. How did that land? Did everybody kind of connect with what I'm actually trying to do there? And this full moon gives us the opportunity to lean into that new truth and the governing principles that will drive you to align with your truth, versus the one that has been driving you before. So one has been driving you before and gave you a set of frames and values. Now we're going through a disruption process that says, hey, there's a new possibility for something new. We all feel it. It's becoming real, but it's not really there completely. And I'm saying the way that you actually come into that is by allowing yourself to be driven from the inside out. That's where agency is. That's kind of something that's kind of like baked into the astrology immersion. That's what I'm going to be teaching. Okay. All right. My Pluto is at 28 degrees of Capricorn. It's sitting on my IC for the last years, and hence one of my lessons. Well, when Pluto comes into your fourth house, that meta optimization process it's going to bring into your awareness, need to explore and examine. I mean, this is, I would say, allow yourself to breathe through all the emotions that are going to come into your life, and to recognize that there's a part of you that is going to become, there's a part of your identity that will no longer be part of the future, and you'll be processing, breaking down internalized messages that you receive from your family, from your mother, etc., and you'll be stepping into a completely new part of you. I recognize where I have already been is no more, and the door is open for where I belong. I love that, and as a reflector, I'm attracting the environment that I belong to. Oh, that was cool. I like that. What's the symbol? Hello, peeps. What's the symbol that's the piece? Like, all of this is fun and fantastic, but in order for you to kind of really grapple with it, I'm encouraging you, right, based on somebody's comment, I'm encouraging you to find a symbol that represents the future self. And I want you to connect with the values that future self has. I want you to connect with the way that future self feels, and then I want you to allow that future image to drive you to step into that new space. Okay. Cool. Okay. I think this is where I'm going to complete this process over here, guys. So thank you very much for watching. I hope that you got a lot of value from this process. Go back and watch the video over and over, because there's a lot over there. Ultimately, what I'm trying to say is, here's a series of belief systems. Here's a series of belief systems. We are in the middle. This is becoming outdated and rendered no longer purposeful anymore. This one is the new one. Align with this new one by understanding what deep metaphysical truths you use to align with it, aka a symbol, and then communicate and connect with that symbol each day, and allow it to drive your relevance realization, which is how you prioritize your life relative to the values and a deep meaning that you assign to those values, okay? Allow that to be present every single day. And the process of connecting with that is every single day spend half an hour distributed whenever you want to connect with your experience of life. Connect with you. Okay, pause, connect with the space. How was I experiencing that? How was I experiencing that? Did I like that? Did I not? And eventually over time, your cognition will develop the necessary neurokinetics within your brain, as well as the synapses, to form an anchored sense of self that you can then use to navigate in this world, as opposed to being driven by something that's deeply unconscious. Okay? Cool. All right, I'm going to post it one more time. Early bird waitlist for the immersion that's going to be coming up. We've created a 6-part series. I'm really excited to share that with you. It's going to be coming out super soon. What you want to do with that link is put yourself on the waitlist, so that if you want to be informed when we are sharing all this information to this immersion that's coming through. If you want to really learn the way I've been teaching right now, this is kind of what this is. Okay. Welcome in the new. Exactly. Awesome. Thank you, everybody. I hope that you, like I said, I hope that you have a fantastic rest of the day, and I'll see you in another video. Take care. Bye-bye. Let's see.